He'll always giving DMs or messages from on Twitter or on X now from a May Musk, and then from Elon Musk, and then my account was suspended or whatever. In other words, I don't know if it's suspended, blocked, but this has been ongoing with the FBI involved since before the sale of Twitter to X. It was involved with upskirt picture, with a principal upskirt nature, and with Weathersfield Police and the FBI changing evidences. They have roles with all kinds of natures of organized crimes. Where and how they've been charging. Like, they forced me for a mental evaluation. They wouldn't communicate with me because the ones I saw there with my eyes, I never had a word of conversation with them. And I recognized them. Involved with the names I recorded, involved with all kinds of abuses of all ages and all kinds of evidences racking from other areas on my street. Like with a Robert Rodriguez who brought up the child abusers campus that I caught them with first, and they've been changing and faking evidences that are really recorded with just faked evidences, changed evidences. They've been putting fake ties to kids. They put me in fake conversations with the police at the Weathersfield police station that wasn't at all when I was a kid and I was an adult. Increasingly, people tied to a Ray Colol and a Joe DeMauro have roles with names next to the state corrections offices, involved with judges and prosecutors and their family members, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all these different countries at and next to the campuses. Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University have a whole bunch of people recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming to me, even on Facebook, which I'm not even on there anymore. They're lying about what they communicated past and what they know they're communicating now, when how they are still roles. With the Facebook page of the principal upskirt nature, where they forced that with other natures of organized crimes. Time collusions with a former mayor, with retired police chiefs from Weathersfield with their kids and intimate ties, and ones of their family members. Involved with the same house/S near me, with a whole bunch of people from other areas. Since I was a kid, planting evidences on my street with them. And their roles interbranch with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and with the courts putting the same sequence shifts, for example, self-value, and with news planting the same predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, attached me to fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center attack, too, while I caught them forcing the child abuser leader of kids, attaching the little kids and their families to fake ties to others. And mixed roles with that are foreign and domestic medical families, including ones with intelligence, foreign and domestic military, too, with Hartford Hospital, are increasingly involved with judges and prosecutors and their family members, involved with the branch of government individually grouped and together, use remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, or all kinds of natures of collusions with predicate acts with facts, wire crime acts and methods with Weathersfield Police, and mail crime acts and falsified police reports with them, used to screen their roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. They're not legitimately well-marked intelligence, involved with a Christopher Walters, a whole bunch of people tied to him. I only know him. He was influenced. I was in a car. They put me in a car with him, with my neighbor. And to drive to school, we didn't go to the same school. And there are proofs they broke my car. And then they were placed, and there were proofs they faked and changed what I said and the value of it. They're lying what they think about it in a speech class. And they made me stay back. Never had a personal conversation with that teacher. She's increasingly involved with people all along Route 175 with federal evidences crimes and child abusers, leaders of the years, the leaders of the kids, years apart, where they were time use/S of those names and of relative things. And with other. Now, these are people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimate with the military, also into religious spots. And next to them, there are names on all sides of a religious spot on Route 3 that know my name only because others went out of their way to make it look like they know me or I know them. And like with the Robert Rodriguez, Route 3 goes by the state judicial branch offices. No. People associated with the state judicial branch offices, like conjunctive to it, it's right near the corner of Sosny High and Route 3, which goes by the judicial branch offices. Right near there is a Weathersfield Pizza House. A Steven Stocko has wire crime action methods of Weathersfield Police and intelligence people at Central Connecticut State University and intelligence families near me. I never saw him in my area in my life. I only saw him in the campus. One class I had with him, he sat in front of me. I never had anything to do with him or my neighbor or with and the Paul Zano, who were in that class and influenced to I learned more and more about what they were influenced to bully him, harass him the entire class. And I knew they were trying to get me to partake with that because I already recorded them about planting and changing, faking evidences. They say, why would you put that? Why would you say? I did say these things. They have been preventing writing. They have been mixing campuses with the syntax about things that happen off campuses. And then they're having roles with that defended. Where and how those identities of roles with such conversations will not force the quality of fact treatment nature necessary and counters to criminal enterprises and criminal insidiousness nature itself necessary. Weathersfield campuses and a security guard and some medical people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also, the family of judges have a Guy Di Novellis that they recorded. Guy Di Novellis, nothing personal. There's a Delaferra family, and they have roles with the Spada family and other intimate ties with the Spadas with a bunch of probate courts. A Delaferra family, per them, they have a probate court judge in their family. And there's a probate court judge associated with the Spada sisters and their brother. I never met their brother. I barely know the sisters. Two of them I only know. Made confessions. The other one, I was they made an exception. There are proofs that they took a picture of me near Dearborn Street in Newington. Dearborn Street in Newington has a bunch of people involved with predicate acts with facts intercampuses with child abusers, leaders of the kids years apart too. Overt criminal enterprises and private ones. These are not people legitimately with the bordering countries, other countries, and the bordering states. No. There are people with a Ski 93 group associated with the Mark Violet. And in other words, and I don't even know all their names, but he has roles with victims advocates and victims of crimes, the victims of a crime of a Subby Bajerio. And where and how I partook with that. Mark Violet and Mike Violet, I never had a word of conversation with that Joe. I don't even know if his last name was reportedly a Joe, who a Subby Bajerio stole a speaker box from. A Subby Bajerio is also one of the ones involved with judges and prosecutors with some medical and sexual offenders of kids, and names with ones that aren't even doctors putting fake things in databases tied to them. They have positions associated with doctors, counselors, etc. with the kids. Those families are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. So please, Elon Musk, like for 3 days, I was there, forced for a mental evaluation. No one communicated. They forged names of other doctors and faked conversations with me with themselves. One's tied to the neighbors involved with wire crimes and the police, forging and switching names, refusing to get on paper still as a kid. Attached me to fake conversations at the police station as a kid and then as an adult, and through the news to cover that up when I was a kid. Because they're putting predicate acts of facts at each campus I went to, and they're building upon that. Also with names next to the campuses this is all recorded, they'll tell you this. I minded my own business to be able to observe this. So increasingly people on Valleycrest Street in Weathersfield recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their role. They have collusions with predicate acts with names who tied to conversations with people on Copper Mill in Weathersfield and with Church Street in Old Weathersfield. And they're connected. And these are ones that have been speaking, for example, and Griswold Street. And these are ones who have been speaking in town meetings. I just happened to see, and in other words, just happened to be all kinds of connections to that too, where how they forced rules with a principle upskirt nature. And so they're making subject treatments. People make subject treatments as styles, nature's needs of logic that need to, no, not legitimately. They need to, well, that's not our job. Or they value evidences that is in databases, pretend it's legitimate, pretend they couldn't fathom it couldn't be legitimate, even though that we still have black people's rights of eyes left out from subjects it is inseparable from. Just like the breaching methods reassignments of what nature communicates with that is inseparable from those subjects, like American history. And this was entrenched before America's founders were born, northern colonies, southern colonies. We have no security because we have the people that have the knowledge of good and evil. The only reason they know about the X-14 565 missile and that, and the countermeasures, and this is the defense back. The only reason they know about that, more than they're using that knowledge of good and evil to get over on us, change and fake what we say. Use the value of the seriousness of that to get over on what's serious properly. You guys are using what's serious to pretend not to realize roles, forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading other things, others, ourselves. Blame right for things that nature, ourselves, and our founders communicate for us to blame on the human fact, attribute, nature, breaching method. Nature itself shows us that a human fact, attribute, nature, breaching method is one of the things true always that slavery was its value as. And that's not against black people alone. It's just concentrated sickly distinctly against them. Because this is against black people's rights of eyes and measures and maintains self-value rules, blaming other things, others, ourselves for what the breaching method caused and what the breaching method maintains. Like, when did they have integrity at campuses A through Z? The nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature that once, while being defended, is using to be sensed for the breaching method. For example, next to a witch trials place in Old Weathersfield, there's what was Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. And they have other communicated for James Madison and our founders. I didn't even look into it deeply because in other words, the nature of debate is needed by the breaching method to sense for itself too. Other is being and has been communicated for James Madison. For example, the scientific value of the human fact, attribute, nature, breaching method that James Madison and our founders declassified. Didn't allow them free speech, didn't allow anybody free speech, even any group, including a majority of people, including the phenomenon of everybody from a colony or a state or a country. That individual voice, any grouping of countries too, that individual voice, while entertaining locations, areas, and states, styles, needs, and natures, blaming and having blamed other things, other themselves. Again, right for things that nature itself, and that our founders communicate for us to blame on, a human fact, attribute, nature, breaching method. People don't understand our founders because our founders, they have replaced, our founders were communicated for us to understand them, plural, as James Madison, singular, and how they all agreed to use his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to use that plan. Otherwise he would have been destroyed too. We were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington, which would have brought this up. Because it was worse extortion, torture, and slavery by the breaching method. So James Madison's plan forced the other founders and presidents to fight to get the Constitution unabridged and appreciated properly. Why, where, and how. We have rights that are too numerous to have to list, let alone the collusion /S, even at the prisons and next to all natures of crime scenes and next to the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices relative to where and how we can discern, where and how the voices, the styles of logic, the natures of logic are being and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, /hyper-criminally foreign influence, /tactically hyper delusions wrought. So we have the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature reliant upon A, therefore B, Boolean logic with the voicings of history. Simultaneously self-valuing, which extensive, uh, which only extensive, not complicated, pretended to be complicated, while simultaneously pretending what's simple about it. In other words, what is complicated about the pretending is simple. Exactly the ulterior from how nature shows us to appreciate that. Nature's identity is a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. So I'm referring to it as the hyper-simultaneous. Nature's identity shows us that it is not the other species' bodies, and it is not our own species' body of individual bodies that invented how and why all the different species have quality aspects of nature distinct but also non-distinct and simultaneously, again, further slash hyper simultaneous. And this is also comes with demonstrations about how the nature of the complete identity of all space slash existence is inseparable from the extent of its individual body that we can discern. For example, such ways: being able to discern how it is not our species body is not the other species body, how wide there are two eyes shared between totally different species. Quality aspects of nature distinct, but also not even bugs have consciousness to an extent shared. So we have the sciences with theories in ways that no one fathomed because everyone was a certain type and came through a certain type of child abuse. We had self-valued roles with it. Clearer than day. That's what it was, child abuse. Where and how you had left out how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. How we have means since we were little kids to discern that there was a human fact should be nature breaching method against all human differences, against all human bodies of the individual human species body. And how our founders told us president slash chief, so we could discern how sickly distinctly Native Americans against Native Americans, and then our founders were born. Everyone was already from abridged systems before modern religious messengers were even born. Already everyone had been separated from the function slash S that nature revealed the campus value as to us and exceptions to it. But we can't appreciate that now. We are offensively forbid that, to appreciate exceptions in exception nature the way nature does, which is the ways we know, but then further hyper additionally. On a mass scale, the identities of the sciences have been self-valued roles. Putting fake exceptions, valuing fake exceptions, exception nature as appreciated and into databases too, which is functional because with the difference of it there, or with who said what said. And these are people out of the state corrections offices and state judicial branch offices involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, first forced. Multiple judges and prosecutors with names next to the state corrections offices. Involved with a Ray Claw and Joe DeMoro, also with someone named Dave. I never had communications with him. He's involved with trying to make a fake exception outside the state corrections offices. Also, there's a Lance Cuddy as one of the further roles with a principal upskirt nature, per the people with the campuses involved. And I had a conversation with him in my life. He's one of the ones involved too, with others that confess, recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirm with extended family members of the people with wire crimes, with the intelligence near me through time, and falsified police reports. Again, the police pretended ties to me when I was a kid and then as an adult, because they had to cover up how they were used remotely the whole time, which is and how I recorded that. That's recorded. Nature records that too. But see, they're not following mandated law on a mass scale. So they've been charging way more money to those accounts those fake Social Security accounts. They've been charging way more money to Social Security through the intelligence at Harvard Hospital, for example. Way more money than they're paying out to those accounts every month. Just for 3 days to scam everyone. They faked conversations, forged doctors' names. Their proofs they forged my name, put things fake in databases. These are people intra-cities, intra-cities connected with Wethersfield and Hartford, for example, and names next to campuses who run in, including fire and medical campuses and their family members. They run into Hartford Hospital at the same time with the family members of overt criminal enterprises and the private ones. And news putting faked and changed evidences. The same sequence shifts self-value. And self-value part is important because there are remote uses of themselves in the past, now, and in the future. And it is right where they don't self-value it too, because it's manifest that way because they are screening where and how they've been using location/s and other people's names. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and shown needs and means to hide all kinds of things by using everything, every instance and name that comes before them to further use/s self-value of criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw evidence is planting in databases at the crime scenes, the names next to it, the news at the same time to prevent and then in the future they have to pretend they could speak for integrity in the past, and they can't speak for integrity the way they've been trained. All exception nature, they have to pretend they have to self-value. Where and how there are little simple things that everyone would know, but they have them restricted, like in other words, and so only the experts know, like if they even know, like about how about James Madison's plan. And we're all not supposed to allow anything other told, but no one even knows it, and it's replaced. James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, plural, asked and communicated for us to understand him as himself, singular, too. They made that distinction because they knew. You guys are, well, our presidents are our founders, too. And in other words, you guys are, and then you want a needed nature debate that's used to sense for the breaching method with its value left out. At country's A through Z, it's the same problem. And what that causes and caused, too, it knew that it could get people to force, trick, hurt, and persuaded to blame other things, others themselves, for nature's demonstrations of it. So please, I don't know if that was your mother, Elon Musk. And I tried to, in other words, she wanted me to go on Periscope and things like that. And then you wrote me letters. And I asked you a number of times regarding the upskirt pictures on Twitter with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Ian. And his neighbors are further involved with religious spots and with various natures of abuses of kids at the same time. Roles with overt criminal enterprise, private ones. That's why they have self-value roles of women judges with sexual crimes against kids roles, identity theft roles, and little girls too. Not just the ones with their kids and their families involved at the same time against the other kids that don't even know, not even in the same grades too. They have a possession of them. These are the people counters to things like drugs and medicines crimes, as families that are putting fake uses of drugs and medicines and alcohol changed what's actually recorded about that, because they have a means to control. I mean, not to control, to cover up use of location/s while being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, interstates, internationally, and hyper foreign is involved with it. These are people involved with more World Trade Center predicate acts after the World Trade Center with WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Also with the intelligence next to them and next to Fox Connecticut News too. And next to WTNH a number of ways, involved with organized crimes with them. There are journalists and there are people that with the intelligence community next to Fox Connecticut News involved with the Social Security scams. They charge like $20,000 for 3 days, where they force people for mental evaluation. They just fake transcripts. Then they use that to cover up how they are using and having used all natures of investigations, investigators, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. A Leahy family and a Brian Silver. I never had a verbal conversation with them. They non-verbally recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion/S with a whole bunch of other people. Also, a Kevin Dillon. I never had a conversation with him verbally in my life. He non-verbally confirmed the confessions of others when I was a kid, and then when I was an adult, as his roles with proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, and people who had roles forcing such in other natures of organized crimes with it. These are also the families of retired police officers and agencies. And wherever if they're training the kids or what, that training is criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw, identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of methods of covering. There are only 3 branches of government. The breaching method measures and maintains. Them as tools sensing for itself at countries A through Z. That's why please you got way more money stole through like Anthony Yagman has roles with the Leahy family and other doctors at Hartford Hospital. And one of them to fake a conversation with me and sequence shifting with people tied to a Smith family near me with wire crimes with Wethersfield police, predicate acts with them. Per the Wethersfield police. Not even using it in the nonverbal confirmations and demonstrations of a kid tied to them, per him. And their demonstrations of roles with it, and timing me near corners of streets where they say things and pretend they had conversations with you. Have other people do it for them, like the FBI has a whole bunch of people tied to a Joshua Stryker, and people involved with the Witness Protection Program, involved at on and off and next to Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University and other campuses, involved with him with identity theft, fraud, slanders. With a whole bunch of people from other areas who've been lying about me to people in my area through time. And their rules with the corners of streets, like the corner of Griswold Street and Fair Lane Drive. And their rules with a Dean Judd with a Joshua Stryker. And others that put fake letters, they pretended I put a fake letter. And with their rules with people with Canada and Mexico and the bordering states, including with the Clinton people associated with the Clinton's correctional facility, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and planting evidences on Facebook, with a whole bunch of people before and after the World Trade Center attack that are personally and professionally involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence to Corrupt Organizations Act, recorded music being and having been used remotely consciously, grouping criminal enterprises tactically wrong, sabotaging proper counters to that breaching method's use of where and how we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. And those colors just happen to be black and white. But we still have black and white assigned subject treatments only allowed to be entertained through an as systems tactical ulterior from the one that answers our questions with how its body is shown to us. Projecting to us where and how we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. The answer is it's identity of relativity to ourselves / hyper-relativity if we really pay attention. But so in other words, mandated law as it is only followed criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and to cover that up, they have had the families at prison campuses, collusions with criminally foreign influence uses of names at and next to, or just driving by. The difference of that too, of the Wethersfield Connect corrections offices. This is also how nature is 3 ways functional, as 3 parts of itself grouped, simultaneously present, where we could observe that body to an extent individual. Again, the identity of value / variable progression. That is not our species body. It is not those species bodies, but it is all things anyway. Therefore, it is our species bodies. It is other species bodies. And we value that system that has us all that anyway Here, we could ignore it, but it forces our value and our special difference. And as Earths from here, but we are only one species, so it took so long. For example, we have only one species had been criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, self-valued roles with systems tactical ulterior from the one of nature's, where it shows us the difference between positive and negative, and the science of it not to leave out the difference between criminal and citizens' natures of positive, like peace. Right through world wars, psychiatry had roles with criminal and citizens' nature with collusion/S, tactically delusions raw, and with the databases since before computers, being and having been used as identities of relativity to ourselves, where and how the breaching method, the human fact, tribute nature breaching method, the torture, extortion, slavery method, three ways manifest known, is the subject of our founders properly appreciated. And George Washington had to come to counter extort, but had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. That's why he came to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Now the nature of debate regarding that, used to sense for the breaching method and used to act for the breaching method as a nature too. Things are not debatable about that are pretended debatable. And that's gotten away with relative to the importance of what I caught them doing with the names next to each of the campuses I went, including colleges and universities, involved collusion/S with people next to increasingly next to the kindergarten I went, which closed the year after. I went there 1 year. And there are connections between names next to the campuses who had offensive roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports too. And with the same house/S involved with Wethersfield police confessions, they brought up the name Cololo involved and the name Sullivan, but they don't give whole names. Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics confessed and recorded the name Phil Cololo involved. I also noted that after confirmed, and his roles also with someone who was repeating the name while swerving on a bike in front of my house of one of the children involved with them with the where they had forced roles, forcing abuses of them, sexual, medical, and other natures of it at the same time. They have overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Phil Cololo and people tied to him like a Subby Bajario and a John Maiano have roles at West Hartford locations. Also with a Jennifer Kennepicky, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that she has roles with people with intelligence families associated with the corners of the streets like Highcrest and Fox Hill. With syntax, has something to do with her roles with people with triages, interstates, California, Connecticut, and with a Jonathan Maiano involved with the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And people with judges and prosecutors also involved with federal evidences crimes with names with those corners involved. And their roles with Russians, Ukraine. At the same time, for example, these are names involved with Korea too. The same ones involved with the Russia and Ukraine and in Hartford Hospital. Everyone's running in there, high lab aggressions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the family members of fire departments. Increasingly, there's an Inspector Mike. I don't know if that's and they don't tell their names. Wethersfield Fire Department with other fire departments. See, they're making confessions individually grouped and together, and their family members. And then they pretend we had conversations, intercities and intra-cities. But these are people that have been planting evidences on all sides of my house, and they're fishing for means to cover it up. And they're lying about what they think when people say such. They're refusing to identify themselves legitimately. Let's get the Inspector Mike on paper. But we also need a Mike Della Fera, who he has roles with people I don't even know the names of, who have been planting evidences on my street with them. And with probate court judges they have roles with. And the agencies, like the FBI Director Robert Luskin has something to do with their roles with town lines too, all along Jordan Lane, and 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike are increasingly involved with people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me that are relative to and as their roles with the interbranch names, forging and switching names, refusing to get on paper since I was a kid, so they could stick for more fake things in databases. So Weathersfield Police, we got to get them on paper, one name in sequence. They should fear God to pretend it's personal too, or pretend it's an insult against police. You guys are an insult against police to hide and plot. I rap a lot. I think fix the fake transcripts and get the interbranch on paper, one name in sequence. Repent. Get the news too at the same time this is. And with names next to relative crime scenes and body dumping spots that brought up at the same time. They arrest people too with charges knowing that they fake things as collusions with the crime scenes. And then they pretend just because people got arrested, it means what it doesn't. We're going to examine all kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of all natures of investigations investigated. Those are different natures of influences juxtaposed with their roles, needs, and natures with the ones next to the campuses, and the difference of that, like the medical and fire campuses. Harvard Hospital has roles with a bunch of people at and next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, Intercities, and UConn, who have been planting predicate acts with people with intelligence families near me and people from other areas involved with them with those crime methods of having other people from other areas time where I'm going to be and then pretend they knew me with their group. I'm part of their group from other areas tied to the same house / yes, involved with falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and they're educators with sequence shifts with them. But that's also faked for them. So they keep everyone, this person lied. How come no one brought up how truths are used for lies, or how there's a difference between there are criminal insidious. The truths are used for lies, truths to screen lies, truths to screen motivations. These are not legitimate roles of the hundreds of other countries, and the differences of their identities or relationships to us than ourselves. That was all natures of difference were exploited, and only capable of being exploited through what I caught them doing next to each of the campuses. And there are still standing positions with the campuses only capable of defending their logic and natures as raised by self-valuing things fake in databases and their roles already with the interbranch in conversations in background where they faked and changed things or just had that faked and changed for them. So I shouldn't have to beg all this time. Facebook has also roles. See, this is with the Joshua Julian, who's also on YouTube and Twitter. Or no, I don't know who was on Twitter, or someone else with the upskirt pictures. But those are collusions with the Joshua Julian and a Ray Collo posting on YouTube. Even if it's not them, those people were recorded also on Facebook page of the principal child abuser and roles with other natures of organized crimes with them, and with the names next to the campuses, like Harvard Hospital's campus in Hartford, with the businesses and houses involved with the same ones near me with their extended family members and friends, involved with years apart, child abusers, leaders of the kids they have roles with, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people that aren't even in their classes. They're building upon those too. And then they're hiding things from parents, etc. That readings of statutes and precedent, they're not following mandated law legitimately. Why and how they aren't, they're lying about that too. They can't do it on paper and get away with it. Or then they're going to they can't follow mandated law proper. Please get them on paper, one name in sequence. No one wants to have to, and there's more at the same time. You guys aren't letting me speak about. There are people involved with violence on my street from other areas. The ones involved with the overt criminal enterprises side and the foreign and domestic military side with the judges and prosecutors and their family members, and the ones next to the corrections offices, also with some black KKK, Latino themed, Italian themed, increasingly people involved with differences, rackets with the intelligence families near me. They pretend passions and emotions They have these groups as weaponized against other differences. How could they bring up isms like anti-Semitism while they have black people as whites of eyes left out? That's more, in other words. And these are people, they have the ones doing that with the houses involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. These are identity theft, fraud, slanders. There's a Miss Riley who screamed out sexual things about one of the kids of the neighbors near me, involved also with that. Years later now, with that time collusion /S with that. These are people with the names next to Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and Harvard campuses and New Britain campuses have been planting evidences on all sides of my house with a whole bunch of different names from other areas. That might have been a Kyle Gill on Fairlane working on the roof of a house. If you should ask Kyle Gill if he was on Fairlane Drive working on a roof of a house as a roofer. He has roles with some state police and other intelligence families next to Central Connecticut State University, involved with differences racketeering and with religious spots and sexual and medical offenders of kids, with the intelligence at Central Connecticut State University, involved with people from Canada and people from Mexico and the bordering states, including a prison up there, because these are people in not just in Connecticut. I don't know if the state corrections offices, I don't know if the state judicial branch offices, for what we pay attention what's actually recorded. But you guys are fishing what I say to cover up, with what I said. Get me off the fake conversations with the news about the World Trade Center attack while they were planting evidences with child offenders, including sexual and medical. And there were more involved then and now. And these are people with the Facebook page of the principal child offender, with the judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic military involved, again, with the other natures of criminal enterprise, etc., as ones with their kids involved, planting evidences with the news and into databases, little magic tricks, pretending they had conversations, sequence shifts. A Leahy family has their daughter also further on Facebook with sexual and medical offenders, and one's involved with a police chief Cintron, and 1 years ago with like a Mazzucato bakery in a modern pastry, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Jonathan Maiano involved with them, and his family members and his neighbors are involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, federal evidences, crimes, predicate acts, and with the courts refusing to identify themselves legitimately, personally and professionally, with judges and prosecutors and their family members. It has something to do with his roles with and with others too, with Coach Hagenbart, his conversations with other coaches from football, from sports teams, including their family members, involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, and roles with uses remotely of the sense and sensibilities, not just through his more sophisticated than now, but like former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act. Is used to keep the only identities of sophistication as criminal insidious natures of sophistication. Black peoples. We will not leave this out with 10. Please, Elon Musk, do what's right, because way more money is being stolen, and has been stolen through those accounts charged at hospitals and through the mail. They're charging thousands and thousands of dollars for medical services that weren't even at all. And worse, they're using the campuses, including medical, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. They're not just they're even to an extent they're setting them up for lawsuits consciously to maintain all natures of resources uses, all narratives and natures regarding taxes, as system styles tactical ulterior from where and how we are value, the way nature shows the ways we know, but then further, and per relativity of how it shows us there's difference between truths used for lies, truths used to screen lies, truths used to screen lies between that, and truths used to screen motivations. The breaching method has you motivated to keep. There's all the ways you guys have roles, keeping other things, others ourselves, blame. Right where and how we're supposed to blame the human fact, shaping nature, breaching method. That replaced, and that forces replaced our words regarding our short words, let alone our long words regarding Black people's right to survive.